Good morning. I am going to kind of pick up where I left off with the character notes, with a few key players that come in. Friar Lawrence comes in Act Two, and then also Act Three, and he actually remains a really important part of this plot. So we're going to talk about Friar Lawrence a little bit, and we're going to come back to Romeo and Juliet because we actually didn't really talk um, about them as characters because actually a lot of the other characters are more dynamic than what they are, which is interesting since it's named after them. So let's look at um, we're gonna look at back through Act Two. And then we're gonna do a little bit in Act Three. So Act Two, we had all the setup, and now Act Two is a romantic scene, the famous balcony scene, of them talking about how much they are instantly in love with each other, but how they regret who they are and who their families are, so that they know that it's going to be almost impossible for them to be together. Starting here, we have Romeo's love for Rosaline has been replaced by his love for Juliet. So again, love is kind of a loose term here because it's more of a infatuation, um, and an attraction, right? That's what they're calling love in this case because he didn't really even know Rosaline. He doesn't really know Juliet. Um, so love is kind of thrown around pretty easily here because Romeo loves his foe. He cannot woo her like other. Actually, I don't remember what that is right now. But the odds are against him. Romeo and Juliet will find time to um, meet in lovers' sweet extremities. And off the top of my head, I'm blanking on what that one is supposed to be. So I'll look that up and get back to you, unless you guys found it, because I don't have the thing open right now. Anyway, this is right after the party. Romeo ditches Mercutio and Benvolio because he needs to get back and see Juliet. Okay, and then Mercutio acts like a normal um, teenager, early 20s guy, throwing out stuff, making fun of him, and making like sexual innuendos and jokes about Romeo getting together with Rosaline, and because that's kind of how Mercutio rolls, and that's why um, Benvolio's kind of like, hey, just let him go. Like, he actually cares for this woman or this girl. And then Mercutio just sets scars that never felt a wound. He's like, you've never been in love. You have no idea what this is like, right? If you've never been stabbed, you can't make fun of someone's wound who has been stabbed. Like you don't relate. You can't sympathize. So he's like, he has no idea what he's talking about. Um, the biggest thing about the balcony scene is Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? It means why are you Romeo? Okay, it doesn't mean where are you. It says wherefore art thou? What is the purpose of you being Romeo? Like why is that a thing? Um, and then to keep going with that, like why can't we just give you another name? Why do you have to be a Montague? Because that ruins everything. And then Romeo comes out and they talk, and then they decide to make plans for marriage, um, which is really fast, right? But Juliet's already been approached to marry Paris, or to have this possible engagement in the back of her mind, um, and Romeo just seems like he doesn't really have any other things going on in his life, right? We don't really see him interact with his parents ever, which is really interesting. Um, but he's kind of the age where they would expect him to start finding someone to settle down. So it's not it's fast, but like this time frame in their frame of mind, um, this is normal. Like, this is what you do. You get married, you have kids, you keep going with your family name, um, which for us seems strange. Because I don't know, a lot of you are probably not thinking about marriage anytime soon. I mean, maybe you have someone, that you think about as being a good potential husband or wife, which is totally possible. Like, you've got high school sweethearts, um, people who stay together their whole lives when they meet when they're teenagers. Um, but we don't usually get married while we're teenagers. But back then, this wasn't as uncommon. But anyway, so then that's why Romeo goes to talk to Friar Lawrence. Friar Lawrence's character chart. So obviously, Friar Lawrence and Romeo are close, but he's also the priest for the Capulets. So that's why he's in a neutral party. Oops, I have to find it right. There it is. So we have Friar Lawrence. Again, he's neutral in the neutral party. So Friar Lawrence, we would think, okay, man of God, man of the church, helps the citizens of Verona with confessions, all that stuff. So we know he and Romeo are close, right? And he also has a relationship with the Capulets. He and Romeo are close, but he knows all the Capulets. Okay. Um, so here's where it gets interesting. Friar Lawrence hears that Romeo is now in love with Juliet, and um, instead of instead of discouraging this, so that's where we are here on number 5 of scene 3. He says he's surprised at the change of events, like that Romeo has now fallen in love with Juliet. However, he thinks that the marriage may bring an end to the family fighting. Okay. The feud, the grudge. Um, and that's why he goes forward with this. So we have um, Friar Lawrence having some pride and arrogance now in his great idea. Oh, yeah, of course I'll marry you two teenagers. Okay. This would be the way to get your parents to reconcile, to realize that love, that they can, that a member of the Capulets and a member of the Montagues can build a happy life together, that they can love each other. So he kind of has pride in his idea of marriage between Romeo and Juliet. Okay. Um, and that is kind of where everything starts to fall apart. Um, instead of, you know, telling Romeo, whoa, you chill out, dude, you just met her. Let's, maybe you guys can keep meeting here. Let's just see how this goes. It's a pride, right? And maybe it's a desperation too of like trying to end things, trying to think that, oh, I'm of the church. I can bring peace. As a member of the church, as a priest, um, the peace can come from me. Um, right? The peace can come from him or the church. But again, he doesn't really talk a lot about it from a spiritual level. It's more of a let's fix this problem in Verona and then everything will be great. So um, it's not the best idea at all um, for him to listen to Romeo and to agree to marry him and Juliet. So then we have finishing out Act 2. Tybalt is so mad that Romeo dared show his face at the party. He's challenging him to a duel. Okay, the nurse shows up. That's in the video clip that you guys watched. The nurse shows up, says, "I'm here from Juliet. You better not hurt her, or I will cut you." Um, basically, and then Um, Romeo says, have her come to shrift, or confession, right? So that's down here. So come to confession, um, and then we're gonna actually get married. Um, but then the ironic thing is at the end of scene two, Friar Lawrence says, if you go too fast, you will fall. Well, this whole thing is moving pretty fast, Friar Lawrence. So I don't know where you're getting the idea that what you're doing is actually moving slow, or with caution. And then as we don't actually see them get married, the scene closes, and then we know they're getting married, and then um, they have to go their separate ways because they can't leave the church together. So then we get to Act Three. Act Three is where everything turns from um, romance. Yeah, there's some feuding, but it's kind of funny when they're insulting each other. Oh, there's a party and people are, having a good time. Mercutio's funny, Benvolio's funny. And now the comedy stops and it turns very tragic very quickly. Um, so hopefully you looked these up. We have some more soliloquies, we have some more monologues. Soliloquies are when people are talking by themselves on stage, saying their thoughts aloud, what they're feeling, but it's for the audience to understand. A monologue is when one person is talking to a bunch of people on stage or to one person at a time, and they're talking for a long time. That's like a speech. A monologue is like a speech on stage, by a character. A soliloquy is a character wondering aloud about life and what's going on, just for the audience to hear, not for other characters to hear. Excuse me. And an aside also is like when they either talk to themselves quick for the audience or when they quick talk to each other on the side, but it's not for everybody on stage to hear. Um, so then we have the fight, right? Mercutio and Tybalt fight. Um, Romeo is trying to stop them because he loves Mercutio as his really good friend, and now he is part of the Capulet family through his marriage to Juliet, so he does not want to cause any problems. But Tybalt doesn't like that. Um, so Mercutio is killed by Tybalt because of Romeo in the way. Romeo loses it and goes and kills Tybalt. Lady Capulet freaks out because we've kind of seen that she's high strung, and demands that Romeo dies and says, "Hey, you promised that there would be bloodshed." But he says, "Well, it was revenge. It was vengeance. It wasn't like he started the fight. So I'm just going to banish him instead." Right? Um, then we have Juliet, who's like, "Yay, Romeo's coming. I'm a wife. Yay, this is great." The nurse comes, tells her Tybalt's dead. Romeo's banished. Everything's now terrible, right? You think you're going to just carry on like a secret marriage, um, in the town, and now you don't have that anymore. It's gone. Um, so we have Friar Lawrence then talking to Romeo. So the nurse is Juliet's kind of wiser older person, and Friar Lawrence is Romeo's kind of wiser older person. So he's saying, um, Romeo, okay, it's not the end of the world. Yeah, you're banished. You're young. Okay. It's not like we can't try and fix this over time. Like, don't freak out. Because the biggest thing is now he's like, why would I even live? Okay. Um, this is a key here. So suicide was considered an unforgivable sin. Okay. Um, and Romeo's like, this sucks. And there's no point. Like, everything that I thought I had is now gone. And he's like, calm down. It's okay. Then we cut over to back to Juliet. Okay, so we're going Juliet, Romeo, Juliet. And we see Lord Capulet deciding, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm done with this waiting. You're gonna marry her now because he just lost a member of the family. So it's like let's get this going. So he thinks that he's doing something good for Juliet, right? Like that he's giving his daughter someone to take care of her. Uh, but he doesn't ask her, right? There's no obligation even for him to make sure that she's okay with this because he's the head of the household. Um, he will make the decision and everyone else will go with that. Then they have their wedding night. But then Juliet's mother's coming in. And this is the video clip that I'm posting that I want you to watch is um, what happens when Juliet is refusing her dad um, and his match for her. It's not good. And we don't really understand the severity of the insults that he gives her in the original text. Um, and so if you read in the No Fear Shakespeare when it has it side by side, then I mean, it's basically a father calling his daughter all of the worst things that you could be called in today's language. Um, and even in the No Fear Shakespeare, they're not going to be like super vulgar about it. But if you imagine just all the worst things that you could call a woman, um, that's what her dad's doing to her in the end of Act 3. So then when we're moving into Act 4, Romeo is now gone. Juliet's found out she's getting married, but she's already married, which to her is a big deal because she's again Catholic. Marriage is a sacrament, right? It's it's something that you covenant with God with. You can't get married to two guys. That's a terrible sin. So then that's why at the beginning of Act 4, that's why she's like, I can't do this. This is a major sin. So Romeo's worried. Um, so Friar Lawrence is again steps in trying to help the situation. And we'll get into that in a little bit um, with Act 4. Um, let's quick go look here, though. So we have a few things about Romeo and Juliet. Um, so he's not close with his family. He barely interacts with them, his parents, anyway. Um, he is looking for love. Okay, he is actively wanting to be um, with someone. So then he's looking for someone to be with. But he's also very emotional. Um, and he doesn't see um, the big picture, right? He's stuck very much in like the immediate setting. Um, so Juliet, she is still very much like confined to her home. So we can say that too. Like he's free to move around the city. Like he can go kind of wherever he wants. Juliet, it's not like that for her. So she is restricted by her family. She can't go anywhere by herself. She always has to have her nurse with her. Um, she can't go anywhere without permission. Um, she hasn't really thought about marriage, right? Hasn't thought about marriage until Romeo. Okay. But it's also because she wants to escape marriage to, oops, to Paris. Okay. Um, we don't really see a lot of pride and arrogance in them. They are very much the victims here in how Shakespeare paints them. We want them to be successful. Um, yes, they make silly decisions, emotional decisions, but it's not really a pride thing necessarily. I mean, there's always a little bit of pride in all of our decisions because sin, but that's kind of where they are um, in the next decisions that are going to be happening. And the next couple acts is where everything gets super frustrating. Um, and we will kind of try and figure out who, if anyone, is the actual villain of the story, and who is ultimately responsible for Romeo and Juliet's um, end. So I think that's it for now. Sorry, this got really long again. I just really miss talking to you about this because, again, I love this play and these characters are fantastic. And the way that um, the plot goes, again, this is timeless. It could happen anytime, anywhere. Um, it's just how humans work when they can't get past um, their pride and their arrogance, and how it just destroys everybody. So that's why I can go on and on and on about this. But um, so Act 4 stuff is going to be due um, over the weekend, and then we'll finish up with Act 5 the beginning of next week, and then we'll start reviewing for your final. So, all right, email me with any questions that you have, and I hope you have a good day.